right? That these animals are, we love puppies, we love kitties, we love colorful birds, we love dolphins. Most people would probably find these animals hard to love, or at least the behaviors hard to love. Maybe that's an assumption on my part, certainly.
But
But yeah.
It's more of like a question because I feel like for example, orcas, people love those as well, kind of like. I don't know.
Yeah, they're pretty mean.
Yeah, I was gonna say something that's not appropriate, and I'm not gonna make the
you've never said anything that wasn't appropriate.
Yeah, some of them are a little, yeah.
The bullies of the ocean.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I was thinking, because some people really love dolphins, but a lot of dolphin behaviors are also really evil, morally evil.
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you...
Example? What's an example? Oh,
Get Colby in the vlog.
they play with their food.
Just go on YouTube.
Am
I famous? What up, vlog?
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to like dismantle the joke.
Oh, no. So there certainly are other examples.
Name of the book.
Yeah. No. But your point's well taken.
What my question was asking is how do you like, if you guys can explain why people love dolphins, even though like they have their behaviors that like orcas do and like all these other more vicious animals, like why do you think as a population we like dolphins and like are able to get past their really morally evil actions, but like the actions of like
I think part of it is because most people don't know about those behaviors.
They're
They
cute.
go flipper, right? They kind of look like they're
Marketing is
smiling,
how.
even though they're not really smiling, which is kind of the way their face got stuck during evolution, right? It's a complicated question, right? So there's a lot going on there. I guess the reason I picked these animals is because the cruelty, the viciousness, I'm putting all these in quotes, right? It seems gratuitous. It seems unnecessary, right? And it's not like these animals are behaving in this way because they're just so desperate, right? Because like maybe there's just such strong competition for limited resources and they just have no choice but to act like this. And it's not like these behaviors are some kind of like psychopathologies, like some, they snap or they, neurons are misfiring, something is, no, these behaviors are intrinsic to these species, like by their design. These, like they cannot exist but for these behaviors. And so I think that's what's kind of maybe more interesting about these few that I picked. Yeah.
So with like the question of like, well, why are they not like lovable, or why don't people love them? It's like I don't think it's like that we don't love them. I think it's more. I study biology. That's like a favorite of mine. But like I think it's more of the idea that people don't think that they are worthy of being like saved, and so that's the whole idea of like intrinsic value. Is like people don't, with animals that are more to our like knowledge, like dolphins and puppies, we see their intrinsic value because or more extrinsic value because they bring something to us, they bring joy to us, they bring happy to us. So it's something that's like that we can see how they are benefiting our lives, where these other animals aren't like something we see on a daily basis. So we're like, well, why save them? They're not doing anything for me, kind of thing. So
no, I think those are good points. But actually, these animals, none of them are actually threatened. They don't need any conservation. So I mean,
how about like sharks? Do sharks use
a lot of sharks do.
And so I
Yeah.
don't think humans see like, except for shark finning and stuff like that, humans don't really see their intrinsic value because they're not actually bringing something to their lives physically.
Yeah.
Like someone like us on a normal basis.
Sure.
So.
I guess for me though, intrinsic value is like an inherent right to exist, independent of any benefit that they, even if it's like an aesthetic benefit.
And I think
and I agree that some animals just don't have that. I mean, but it depends on the person.
It's the idea that like animals, like people should do animal conservation for its intrinsic value. Like we should protect them because we like want to, not because like if we protect them, they're helping us in the end.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
But it seems like the issue here I mean, I know this is, well, I didn't want to go to theology right away, but the issue would be, can we say that this is good creation? You know, I mean, if Darwin had such a problem with it, and it's, you know, with the wasp behavior, what does it mean to say that God saw that it was good and very good, and yet we find these behaviors, I like to use quotation marks, we probably can't put moral categories on it, but it seems kind of repugnant.
Yeah,
I mean,
offensive.
yeah. So that's, and I love what you said at the beginning. I'll be quiet in a minute here, but the contemplating all of nature, you can't pick and choose, you know. Lovable puppy at home, which I have. Even there, I have to pick and choose which behaviors I really find lovable. But here you have these examples that just seem so gratuitously, unnecessarily destructive, kind of. Yeah.
Wasteful even.
Yeah. And that's the question, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, finally, it isn't so much even what do I find objectionable, like, so much as from a theological perspective, what in the world is the role or place of these behaviors?
Mm-hmm.
Am I tracking with you okay?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, and I would say like we've talked about like my biggest question with these animals is not even like why they are the way they are, like why God chose to make these animals, or why God chose to make a world that could give rise to these animals. I don't think that's really a question that's really answerable, but I think we can think about how they got so offensive. How did they get this way?
Mm-hmm.
Because that could inform what our response should be to them. You know, whether they are indeed very good and worthy of our love, or whether they're not. And so it seems to me that there's like a few different approaches here for explaining how they got like this. One approach is God is sovereign, He's in control, there is a reason everything happens, there's purpose to everything, even though we may not be able to see it or understand it now. There is a purpose for all of these animals being exactly the way they are. Does that like resonate with anyone? Or at least maybe with people that you know, like that sort of approach, that there's kind of purpose to everything, and that's, yeah, we may not know what the purpose is, like why, but there's got to be a reason for it, right? So that's one approach. So like which, I'm sure there's a lot of variation, but like would certain Christian traditions be more apt to accept that?
Yeah. I mean, the names that come to mind would be Calvin and Luther and Zwingli, early reformers especially, who, when push came to shove, thought of everything basically in deterministic ways.
Yeah.
Theological determinism, that obviously they didn't have to deal with these specific instances, but that the idea that God as sovereign creator, and not just creator, but determiner of all things.
Yeah.
And they sometimes try to compete with each other about how detailed that determination is. And so you could definitely have that especially I would say in Protestantism, kind of that idea.
Yeah, so I mean, so that's one approach. But honestly, that's what Darwin was that's what he refused to believe.
Right.
Like how could this exact, I mean, like, that approach is basically saying that these animals are as God intended, exactly, here and now. This is exactly what He intended.
See, by the way, that's not a problem if you don't think of God as, like, we'll say, loving or gracious. You know what I'm saying? If you go more with in charge, and maybe even from our perspective, like predestination, doesn't seem right or fair. You know, and Calvin would say, who are you to judge or question God's decrees? So, yeah, Darwin's coming at it from a little different angle there, right? Like, how can this fit with a
Yeah.
character of a loving deity.
Right, and that's what his issue is.
Yeah.
Now, for me personally, that doesn't really resonate with me. I mean,
Yeah.
I see a lot of children suffering in the world.
Yeah.
That it's hard for me to accept the total determinism, control of God with that. Okay, but I don't know. We can chat about it. Let me just kind of lay them out, and then we can chat about these. So another approach